Ichiro woke up, and the first thing he did was to reach for his smartphone and open the app that took him away from the real world. He had to see whether he was still in the first place. He tapped through and found out he was in the second place. That drove him mad. This guy outran Ichiro while he was asleep for 3 hours. Even the non-offending name I Love Muffins irritated Ichiro. They were all competing for this or this, all for these cars with cute idols drawn on them. There are two main ways you can spend real money in typical Japanese anime idol games. The first way, you can purchase cars. Those games constantly release new cars. When a new card of your favorite idol comes out, you just have to get it. However, you can't get what you want easily. You must get a card pack that usually has 10 cards, and the cards are randomly selected. You purchase a card pack with the virtual currency used in the game. Obviously, you need to spend real currency to get the virtual currency. As in all games of this kind, the drop rate is really low for new cards. Some do spend thousands until they finally get the cards they want. The second way you can burn through money is participating in events where players compete with each other. And I mean real, serious participation. An event usually features one or two idols. If you finish within top 1000, you obtain the special cards that you can only get in events. Some crazy players aim for the first place. You must spend so much money to be in the first place. You have to purchase virtual goods which help you up points to be in the first place. The more you spend, the more points you get. The amount of money some crazy players spend is just incredible. Back to Ichiro. He took his credit card out of his wallet, entered the card number, so he could exchange real money to the virtual currencies to purchase the virtual goods to win the competition. Now he used those goods to add points and put himself back in the first place. He felt relieved. They did it all to show they had the strongest will to support the idol. It was really important for them to show how determined they were and how much they loved the idol by the amount of money they spent. He actually only recently moved into this room to save on rent and spend more on his idol. Because the room was pretty old, the rent was much cheaper than his previous place. Well, there was another reason why the room was so cheap. They said the room was haunted. Ichiro laughed at it and decided to move in. He got dressed and got on the train to work. On the train, he was very busy checking whether he was still in the first place. Even when I Love Muffins, the person in the second place, added only few points, he was driven mad and forced to purchase goods. He was too caught up in the competition that he didn't realize what was going on around him at all. But those who are too much into online games or apps are like this. Not having any room to pay attention to the outside, even if something really strange is happening. Expectedly, all he thought about at work was the competition. He was incapable of focusing on what he was supposed to focus on. He often left his desk during work hours, adding little points in the loo every time. He left his desk too often that his boss eventually came up to Ichiro and asked him if he was okay at lunch break. He had to say okay to his boss. He did feel guilty, but he just couldn't help himself. Apps take your thoughts off the real world. adversely affecting work or academic performance. Of course, this Ichiro's state of mind led him to sleeping less. The competition began a week ago, and since then he had been too worried about the place he was in, staring at his smartphone till very late. He was anxious tonight too, keeping close tabs on I Love Muffins and other competitors in top 10. His eyes were absolutely pinned on his smartphone. He was so scared of losing the first place and decided to purchase more goods. He typed in his credit card number, but the transaction didn't go successful. It was the credit limit. He panicked, throwing things around him. He calmed down a little after a while, and he thought he should fall asleep, as there was no point staying up. He tried but didn't succeed. He ended up staring at his phone all night. Now money had become the biggest issue. He only had few hundred yen left in his bank account, and he was unable to use his credit card. He had already sold his TV, PlayStation, rice cooker, which only brought him a bit of cash. He took out his wallet only to see he had just enough for sustenance. He had to think carefully. There was quite a gap in points between him and I Love Muffins. However, he wasn't able to rule out the possibility of being defeated. He concluded he needed extra cash. He raked through his desk and found a bank card and book. He had totally forgot about this. His mother gave it to him when he graduated from university. It was the money she had been saving up since Ichiro's birth, and there was $1,000,000, which is about 10,000 US dollars left in the account. When he got this, he had promised himself not to spend any of it till the right moment. He didn't want to, but he had no choice. He ran into an ATM and came out with cash in his hand to secure the first place in the competition. There's so many mad gamers who got into debt. Some do borrow more than few $1,000s and never be able to repay their debts. Every time he turned off the Idol app, he started to think how much money he had spent and how little money he had left. He had actually tried to delete the app from his phone a couple of times. Then he would remember the amount of money he had spent on his favorite idol. There was no turning back. If he had turned back, all the money would have been spent for nothing. He came home and realized somebody was in his room. It was his mother. She had his credit card bills in her hand. She was in stunned disbelief. "I dropped by to see if you needed any help with a new place," said she, with her voice trembling. "It is okay you play games, you know," she said. "But how much money did you spend? You must have spent about $1,000,000 with your credit card. You are not a millionaire. And look at where you live now. So shabby. This isn't right, Ichiro. You should come home with me. We can play Street Fighter." Ichiro noticed she was about to cry. The simple fact that his mother was feeling sad made him decide to give up on his beloved idol and quit the app. All the money he had spent would never come back, but there would be a time he had to give up, and he forced himself to think the time had come now. Ichiro moved back to his family. His work performance immediately improved. He felt very happy at home with his parents. He no longer had the pressure to compete and sense of guilt of spending money on something virtual.